I find this very interesting because rate caps also may have an impact on how unsecured credit, and that's the conversation, right, is essentially engineered. It's also about access. Your reaction to the week's events?
Okay, so I think that what's most striking about this news is somehow how it has shown the U.S. commerce dependency on credit cards and credit card rails. And so we're talking about 80% of the population accessing credit through credit cards, plus credit card balance being 1.2 trillion, which I think it's a very relevant number because it sizes the opportunity, and it's a massive opportunity. Okay. And so I think that when we talk about a limitation like this, like a restriction on an intervention on the rates, we are talking about somehow reshaping the infrastructure. We always tend to think as financial infrastructure as a given, but it's actually designed, and what we are having here is a direct intervention, and what basically forces a conversation on the underlying infrastructure and the underlying product. And the question is basically what needs to happen at the product level in order to meet this constraint, in order to meet this new condition, And so I think that the question goes to, well, basically, what's the design, what's the shape of the credit card system right now?
So at this time, Ximena, let me just jump in. At this time, we're also going to wait and see if this happens, what the behavioral reaction is. So let's say that a section of the economy is closed to the credit card. Well, we spoke to the Klarna CEO earlier this week, right? There's a lot of those that would talk up buy now, pay later, account-to-account payments. Does that kind of phase out credit card reliance?
Well, I think that what will happen is that you have a 1.2 trillion opportunity, and if we talk about the actual shape of the credit card system right now, it's a bundled tool. You have a payment tool plus a credit line tool, okay? And these two are combined. If we see what has happened in the payment space over the last 10 years is massive disruption, which is basically new entrants leveraging technology to provide better and most efficient solutions, more cost-effective solutions, okay? And I think that gives us a glimpse, like a clue on what could happen at the credit line infrastructure level. Like we could expect a movement like that. And that means new entrants, very interested, seeing the size of the opportunity, jumping into the space, leveraging new technology in order to meet the requirements of this demand, because the demand won't go anywhere, and it's a huge demand.
Ximena, it was a big week for bank earnings where we hope to find out about how banks are using AI in real terms. A lot of questions to JP Morgan about how much they're spending on AI. But what was your takeaway on the transition, how we go from analysis to the banks running function using AI?
Okay. Well, I think that 2025 marks the year in which AI moved from being an experimentation to full deployment, and I think that's very interesting. Perhaps the most popular initiative was OpenAI's instant checkout, powered by Stripe. Definitely, we will see more of that, especially in the financial institutions, banks landscape over this year, And I think that will bring a lot of innovation and a lot of news over the incoming year. I think that what we've seen over 2025 is AI becoming an efficiency lever and not an innovation toy anymore, And so what financial institutions, banks have done is use AI internally. Initially, it was mostly chatbots, small projects. But what they have noticed is that basically AI can impact the main areas of the financial institution, and especially for banks that have been historically have had a very siloed tech stack, with different parts of the bank having different databases, different technologies, different systems. AI helps all of this to come together, and work as a comprehensive tech stack, And so now we are seeing initiatives in fraud, in credit, of course, in middle and back office, and creating efficiencies in speed, and this is real-time responses to anything that a user can need.